Good evening.
Hello. David, before Christmas, the European Commission announced agreement on a revision of the Waste Framework Directive and other directives. What are the key points in your opinion?
It's a really exciting time to be involved in this industry because you've got a whole series of policies coming together on climate change, sustainable development goals, and now with the European package on the circular economy. As far as we're concerned, because we are biogas people, we are anaerobic digestion people, there's several key points to the circular economy package. The first is raising the levels of recycling targets to 55% by 2025 and in steps thereafter. Introducing the obligatory source segregated collection of food waste, which is going to mean a boom in food waste collection and treatment across Europe, and that is introduced from the end of 2025. Changing the calculation methods. This may seem very boring to a lot of people, but actually the way in which you calculate recycling is very important. And the new rules will stiffen up, tighten up, and create a common methodology across Europe about how you actually calculate recycling. Will it any longer be on the methodology which, for example, we have in the UK, collected for recycling, or will it be upon the methodology of actually what comes out of the plant at the end of the process? And that's the methodology which the European Union are going to adopt.
Excellent. So when will we see these directives enshrined in national law across EU nations?
Well, democracy is a very slow process. It's taken us 3 years now to thrash out the circular economy package. That was a whole series of compromises. It will now take another 6 months or so to get that into European law, and it will take 2 years after that to get into national law. So we're looking somewhere at the beginning to the middle of 2020 before this is enshrined in countries' laws.
So do you think we are moving towards food waste collections across Europe as a result?
There's a whole series of drivers pushing for this. Not least is the climate change driver. Putting food waste into a landfill really is stupid. Burning it is not so stupid, but burning water is not very efficient. And therefore you really want your food waste to be treated properly, to get the energy out of it, to get the nutrients out of it. We have a huge problem throughout Europe in the quality of soils. We're exploiting them mercilessly through intensive agriculture. We really need organic substance to go back to soil in a big way. And by collecting food waste and putting it back to soil, we can solve some of those problems around the quality and the long-term quality of soil for our farmers.
How does the Waste Framework Directive intersect other policy initiatives at European level, such as renewable energy?
Well, as I said before, it's an exciting time because you've got all these drivers coming together. The climate change agreements, which were made in Paris in 2016, look for countries to adopt their policies by the end of 2020, to enshrine those in United Nations law, to abide by them. They're obligatory targets which they have to undertake, and therefore to push towards greenhouse gas reductions. Now we know that biogas can make a huge contribution to that, both by treating waste that otherwise would have produced greenhouse gases and by producing renewable energy. The European Commission has also developed and is about to publish its emissions trading scheme proposals that look to tighten up the previous ones, so there would be more carbon reductions through emissions trading. And then you have a whole series of policies around, as we said, around waste and recycling, which all point in the same direction. That is increased treatment, increased interception, increased recovery.
So that's a lot of directives coming forward. So how about the Fertilizer Directive? It hasn't yet been finalised.
Yes, this I forgot to mention earlier, and the Fertilizer Directive is important because here you will see enshrined in European regulation rather than directive the use of alternative fertilizers, so in other words organic fertilizers coming from waste collection. Until now this has been possible in many European countries through national legislation. United Kingdom has the possibility of treating food waste and making it into fertilizers, but we don't have any common standards throughout Europe, and the fertilizer regulation will create those common standards, presumably create a common market in certain qualities of those fertilizers, but above all enable to take away any obstacles, to take away any excuses for treating food waste and making final products from them. Now, as I said before, we need those nutrients back to soil desperately. And the fertilizer regulation is really the last piece of the jigsaw which allows that to happen.
So what do you think could be agreed, and what are the implications for AD in Europe?
All those things point towards a boom in food waste and other biogenic waste treatments. Anaerobic digestion is, of course, the top of the pyramid in terms of recovery of materials and energy, and I think that the future for anaerobic digestion is rosy. Now, of course, what the European Commission and the European Union don't determine are national incentives, fiscal incentives. Those are still determined by national governments. So it really is the role of the national associations representing the biogas industry in each of their countries to ensure that their national policies fit into this overall European and international direction.
Excellent. So a lot of
hope for the future, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.